You know, myself and Mrs. W, we absolutely love the month of May. There are lots of reasons. We pat ourselves on the back because we're still feeding ourselves. Because of the work that we put in this time last year. We still have purple sprouting broccoli to eat, carrots from the polytunnel, turnips, radish, pak choy. We've actually just had the last of our lettuce, but the next are on their way. But it's not just about the bountiful harvest that we have, it's also the promise that May gives us. Here is one of the first flowers that have actually come out on the peas. The potatoes are well on their way. Onions, broad beans. In fact, there are some we could probably eat there now. So I absolutely love the month of May. It has all the ingredients to make 2024 an amazing year. But in today's video, we are going to give you 12 essential tasks that need to be performed before May is finished. First essential job between now and the end of May, if you have multi-sown your onions in the same way that we have, then you need to be thinning them out. There's 4 in there, Mrs. W, so that's all okay. There are 5 in here, and we want to thin these down to about 4 onions per clump. So what we're going to do is find that one we want to take out and just ease that away from the clump. Now you may think that what's the point in sowing them as multi-sown onions? This is an extra job that I have to do, but the reward is a lovely spring onion.
An extra spring onion harvest.
And by the time I've been through these, we'll have a lovely bunch of them. Ooh, very oniony. That's all these onions are at the moment. They are immature onions, spring onions. And my next tip is to thin your carrots. If, like Gus, you sowed your carrots towards the end of March or beginning of April, they should be looking pretty much like this. Now, we haven't done too badly, Mrs. W.
No, I
Just
think
for a change.
they're relatively well spaced, aren't they, anyway?
They are.
There's an odd one or two we could pull out.
But you will always find some that need just to be thinned down. Some that are not in their rows. And if you find yourselves with a couple, here's 2 here, look, they are just too close together. They are never, ever going to form very good carrots. But it's important when you do go to thin them out that you don't just pull them and yank them. This is the one we're going to keep. So I'm going to put my 2 fingers either side of that, and then I'm going to pull these 2 up. Otherwise, you will end up pulling the whole lot up, and that's about the distance you want between your carrots to give you some lovely sized carrots come the summer. It's also a good idea that once you have thinned them to where you want them, to give them a watering back in, just to help settle the compost in around them. Here is where we sowed our parsnip. Germination has been quite good actually, and very kind to us, because they can be a bit tricky. But where we sowed 3 seeds per station, we now need to get those down to just the 1. As you can see here in this we have 3 seeds. This one has only just germinated. I don't want that, so I'm just going to cut him off. He shall grow no more. I'm looking at that and I'm looking at that, and it's a really tough decision, but that has a bigger leaf, so purely for that reason, that one's going. You could have left either of them. We have 2 next door. That one looks a bit stronger to me, so I'm going to terminate this one. And you just do that all along the row until you have 1 plant per station. We grew 2 different varieties of purple sprouting broccoli, Rudolph and this, the claret, and that's meant that we've been actually eating purple sprouting broccoli now since the last week of December, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And it's still coming.
Still going.
It's hard to keep up with it at the moment.
And, you know, if you think just how much food you may still have in the garden now to eat, you know what you've got to come. You can see just how valuable these plants are. But now that we are in May, it's even more important that you do keep on top of the harvesting. You can see here, even on this here, the yellow flower is about to come. So I need to be really quick with that. Same here. If you left that for another day, we'd come back over tomorrow and all this would be in bright yellow flowers. Now the harvest gets smaller as the month goes on. You can see that they aren't the big stalks that they used to be. They're really quite small. But if you just look here, Mrs. W, you can see that there's still more wanting to start to shoot. So we should still be able to harvest purple sprouting broccoli right through to the end of May, maybe into the beginning of June, which would be absolutely amazing. Next tip, I often say this, but because myself and Mrs. W are quite efficient at going around and doing the job, I don't always get some good examples for you. But this purple sprouting broccoli is a brassica, and you can see that after a while the leaves actually they start to deteriorate, whereas the ones at the top, this is what's helping to give this plant energy. Things like this and this really is no more good to the plant. This one is broken anyway, so it might as well come off. And you're not hurting this plant whatsoever. In fact, what you are doing is doing the plant a favour and actually yourself a favour, because now you can start to see into the plant to see where your next harvests are actually coming. And we actually start to do this right from very early on in the plant's life. You can see this is yellow, it's not doing that any good whatsoever. So another one here, these happen to be the Calibris that we're doing with the Grow With Us. See, they're looking really quite nice. But yeah, as you see leaves that are not doing the plant any favours, just remove them. While we're here, and now that we've actually removed this cover, Mrs. W, I need to do a bit of weeding. And that's something else that you need to keep on top of. My next tip is do pull the weeds when small. Certainly for us, being no dig, these come out so easily. If you leave these too long, especially in these lovely warm temperatures and the moist weather that we're going to get, it's due to rain, I think next Wednesday. But with the warm temperatures too, these weeds will soon get going and they'll be making their flowers, setting their seed. My next essential tip to do this month is to get your tender plants out, your bedding plants out. I couldn't go out until all danger of frost has passed. We've more than reached that point now. We haven't seen a frost now for 2 weeks. And looking ahead, the temperatures are actually getting warmer and warmer overnight. Mrs. W has a selection of them. We've got some zinnia, our lovely marigolds. Do love the marigolds. Nasturtiums, we're going to dot those about the garden. We do have nasturtiums here, but we don't really grow a huge amount. But these are really good at actually taking the white cabbage butterflies away from your brassicas. We'll always cover ours, not least because of the pigeons. But the more defences you have against these pests, and these are natural ones, the better your plants are going to be. Some lovely lupins. And these, what are these, Mrs. Cosmos?
Cosmos, yeah.
We haven't actually grown any cosmos for a while, have we?
No,
for a
we
couple of
haven't.
seasons. So,
We haven't.
yeah, it's going to look really, really lovely. And it's time to put our sunflowers in. If you remember, I said when we first sowed these that I wanted to have a sunflower in each plot.
Ooh.
Ah, the lovely marigold. We should obviously see flowers on those, you know
Oh, I
that.
know, they're getting little tiny buds on them already.
Yeah.
Definitely ready to go in.
Some more lovely comfrey feed, Mrs. W.
Yeah, brilliant.
And that's what my next tip is all about. Now is a great time to make your organic feed. And it's all for free. We always keep a small patch of nettles, and ours are just behind here. It's not going to be long before they're actually going to start to make a flower. So now is the ideal time to actually cut those off and soak them in water, just in the same way that you would if you were making comfrey. You know, these are great free resources. Everybody can have a piece of comfrey in their garden. Everybody can let a small patch of nettles just grow. And it is literally just a case of filling a bucket with water, burying the stems, whether they be nettles or whether they be comfrey, just putting a stone, something heavy on top so that they stay below the water, and leave it for a few weeks. And you get this lovely, dark, comfrey feed. This is the nettle tea that we've made. And you know, that's great when it comes to leafy greens. It's full of nitrogen, nettles are. You can see the difference in the colour. So we always feed anything that we want good leaves to grow with that. With the comfrey, that's really great for your tomatoes. And somebody actually asked me in the last video about whether we used tomerite. We have done in the past, of course we have. We didn't know anything else. But now we know how to make this. This is what feeds anything that's going to provide some kind of a fruit, whether it be tomatoes, cucumbers. Really great stuff. And all you need to do is, we have a 10-litre watering can, and it needs to be 1 part of either that you're going to use to 10 parts water. Potatoes are looking amazing, Mrs. W. In fact, there's flowers now starting to form on them.
Oh, is there? Well,
These
that's
are the Charlotte.
yes. Oh, brilliant. They are doing well.
Yeah. So everything's coming along nicely. But you saw me doing ours a couple of weeks or so ago. If you haven't done yours yet, May is the ideal time to start earthing your potatoes up. What you don't want to be doing is to ridging these right up. That's for the main crop potatoes. When you see the big high ridges up here, that's for your main crop potatoes. But it's still a very good idea to draw some soil up over your first and second earlies. In our case being no dig, we pop some compost on top. And that's because the potatoes grow very, very near the surface. And as they swell and get bigger, they do pop up. And we made the same mistake about 2 or 3 years ago, didn't we? Thinking, oh, they'll be fine. We've buried those potatoes 5-6 inches down in the ground. And then you look around here and you can see the potatoes through the top and you think, oh, they're going green, they're going green. So just earth them up. You don't have to make, as I say, big ridges, but just drag a little soil, if you're new dig, over onto your first and second earlies. And if you're like us new dig, just drop a bit of compost there. It saves all of the worry about your potatoes going green. The outdoor strawberries are coming on really well. So they're full of flower now, and some of them are starting to form strawberries, but they are just that little bit further behind than the ones that we have in hanging baskets in the poly. But if you haven't netted yours yet, I always net ours really quite early, because when you get to my age, you sometimes forget to do jobs, and then you think, oh dear, we have no strawberries. So I get mine done early. But if you haven't done yours yet and they're at this stage, flowers about, now is the time to get some bird netting. And it needs to be bird netting. I did see somebody a few weeks back using Enviromesh. Enviromesh is not the correct application for this, because the pollinators cannot get through. They won't be affected by cabbage whites or anything like that. They don't go after these. But you do need bird netting, because then it stops the birds from getting through to peck your strawberries, but it's big enough to let bees, all kinds of the pollinators that visit your garden in order to pollinate these strawberry plants. And the same goes for all of your soft fruits. If you have a particular pest in your garden, we've actually discovered that some pigeons have gone after our cherries. So we need to net our cherry to save the remaining ones that are on there. I came up the other day and thought, where've all the cherries gone?
I've never known them to take the green ones before.
No,
I've
neither have
usually
I.
only taken them when they've started to colour.
But it's a lesson learnt.
It certainly is.
And when I net these in April next year, a net's going over those.
Absolutely.
It may be that you have birds that go after your gooseberries and things like that. If that's the case, and you know that that's the case, just drop a net over them, just to keep them protected. Are you ready to come out again now, girls? Ah, 3 lovely eggs today. Come along then, out you come. It's amazing, Mrs. W. It's not just all the fresh veg that we get, is it? But actually the lovely eggs. In fact, they're more intelligent than you think. If Mrs. W spins around, they're coming around the other way because they know I've got some food. You've eaten what we put in there this morning, haven't you? There you go, girls.
Come on, Luna, you come and get some too. Luna is our broody one at the moment. She keeps sitting on the nest, doesn't she, Barry?
She does, yes.
So I turf her out to come and have something to eat and drink.
In just the same way that we make nettle tea and comfrey tea, you also get your compost tea, and we have trays under there that all the moisture drains out of here and into the bottom, and then we just fill it up from here and use it in exactly the same way. 1 to 10. It's a great all-round feed, that particular one is. But my next tip is, do keep composting. Oh, Mrs. W. That's at 70 degrees at the moment.
Wow.
That's a bit too hot, but that should sort of start to cool down and on the wane.
Some of the chicken bedding went in there because I cleared them out today, so
Yes.
that's good.
But do keep composting. Every time you mow your lawns, every time you harvest something, make sure that you use those resources. This one is better. This one is round about 50. Sort of ideal.
Brilliant.
Do you know, I think it's amazing that actually Luna's and the chickens are actually going to harvest my potatoes for me, Mrs. W.
Luna.
Go on, girls, we need some potatoes for this evening.
They are funny, aren't they?
Aren't they just? What doing, puppy? Well, I've rent you in a crust jumping like that. Now we just have 2 more essential tips for May. The first is the edges of your lawns. Keep them well cropped. We say it many times, but actually it does help reduce the risk of slugs by keeping things nice and tidy. I like to keep the grass nice and cropped and the edges nice and short. And really my last tip is sit down and enjoy your garden. There are many great things that have gone on, that are going on, and that will go on as the year progresses. Even the distant sound of our neighbours mowing the lawn, there's actually quite a peaceful sound. Just reminds you that spring is here. There are bees going in and out of Mrs. W's bee hotel. We've had birds that have been making their nests and won't be long for fledging. It's a great time of the year to actually just sit down and enjoy your garden. Do let us know in the comments if you have any further essential tips for the month of May that everybody else can view. From the sounds of it, what I've heard over the last couple of weeks, your gardens are going swimmingly. And it's great to hear all your success stories. Do have a great gardening week. And we shall see you back here in the garden on Thursday.